Number 10. The Shazamily. Billy Batson, aka Shazam's family of heroes are a powerful force to be reckoned with, and though their youth and inexperience might be a disadvantage if they were fighting the modern League, you have to remember how often the Silver Age heroes made really bizarre, borderline stupid decisions. Superman and Shazam have a history of going toe-to-toe and are pretty evenly matched, so they pretty much cancel each other out. Black Adam is currently a member of the Shazamily, and when he fought Martian Manhunter in the World War III storyline, Black Adam beat him so hard that he left the planet crying. So no issues there. That leaves 5 Shazam family members: Freddy, Darla, Mary, Pedro, and Eugene, all of whom have the powers of Shazam and their magical tiger Tawny against 4 Leaguers: Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman. This version of Batman isn't really suited for this kind of fight, so whether or not the remaining 3 League could survive would really depend on how long it would take Black Adam to murder Martian Manhunter. Number 9. The Justice Society. Before the Justice League was introduced in 1960, the superhero team of the DC Universe was the Justice Society of America. They helped the Allied forces in World War II and have helped to keep the world safe ever since. This team gets a lot of points against the League due to the technicality we established in the intro. Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman were all members of both teams, so won't be considered in this hypothetical matchup. While that removes a lot of the League's heavy hitters, the JSA is still left with a considerable roster that would make them a nightmare for the remaining Leaguers. Black Adam is a member of this team as well, so as stated before, he could handle Martian Manhunter like he did in the World War III storyline. In a fight between Silver Age Aquaman and Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Arthur Curry is coming out of it as fish food. The JSA has their own Flash and Green Lanterns in the form of Jay Garrick and Alan Scott, so that would put the JSA on almost even footing. But once you include additional members like Blue Beetle, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher, and Mr. Terrific, I think the JSA takes it through sheer numbers. Number 8. The Teen Titans. A team consisting of the various sidekicks and young heroes of the DC Universe, many fans would assume that the Justice League would have no trouble taking out this team. But I would argue that the Silver Age version of the team is less powerful than most of the more infamous Titans lineups. I mean, Silver Age Batman is the guy who wore a different colored bat suit every night to try and distract criminals from Robin's broken arm. In a fight between him and Nightwing, Tim Drake, or Damian, I would put my money on any of the Robins who have been on the Titans 9 times out of 10. Silver Age Martian Manhunter's weakness is fire? Well, good luck with Starfire. Superman would probably pair up best against Raven, whose magic would give him some trouble. Miss Martian's mind control would be effective against Green Lantern. Between members like Cyborg, Supergirl, Power Girl, and Beast Boy, I think Aquaman and Wonder Woman could be handled. The only Leaguer I'm having trouble with is the Flash. Any ideas? Let me know in the comments. Number 7. Doom Patrol. This team of freaks were all victims of accidents caused by the scientist Niles Caulder. These accidents made the team members outcasts, but also granted them amazing powers, which made them capable of amazing feats. They also have members who would match up well against many members of the Silver Age Justice League. Their leader, Niles Caulder, has a tactical brain that rivals that of Batman. Lucius Reynolds can wield magic and is capable of pyrokinesis, which could make him a problem for Martian Manhunter and could dehydrate Aquaman, who in the Silver Age needed to be exposed to water every hour. Danny the Street could make himself a yellow, inescapable void, thus trapping Green Lantern. One of Kay Chalice's personalities can see the future, making her a good candidate to go up against and counter Flash's super speed. Elastigirl's power to grow to huge heights is similar to Wonder Woman's recurring villain Giganta, making them a good matchup, and Negative Man can produce radiation, which he recently used in the latest World's Finest run by Mark Waid to imitate the effects of Krypton's red sun, meaning that he could depower Superman. He could also use this power to give Batman cancer, so all in all, the Doom Patrol is not to be trifled with. Number 6. Young Justice. Yet another beloved team of young heroes who were mostly sidekicks who formed their own team. Young Justice wouldn't last long against the modern Justice League, but once again, you have to take into account the weaknesses inherent to the Silver Age versions of the characters. For example, while you might assume that the first Aquaman, Arthur Curry, would wipe the floor with the new Aquaman and former Aqualad, Jackson Hyde, the Silver Age version of Arthur wasn't summoning leviathans or causing tidal waves, he was riding dolphins and hanging out with an octopus named Topo. As I said in the Titans entry, Tim Drake vs Silver Age Batman is no contest. Teen Lantern might not be a match for Green Lantern, but if any member of the team simply painted themselves yellow, they would probably be fine. SUPERBOY would probably take Superman by surprise with the sheer level of brutality he was capable of, and although he probably wouldn't win, if he teamed up with a character like Sideways who can open rifts to other dimensions, they could probably get him off the board for a while. Martian Manhunter could be trouble, but Jenny Hex's power negation abilities and the sheer power of characters like Amethyst and Naomi McDuffie, I think they could handle him. Wonder Girl and Silver Age Wonder Woman are probably about on par, and Impulse would be able to at least slow down the Flash, but the Young Justice ringer is Summer Pickens, who can dial her H-phone and be replaced with a hero from the Heroverse who can handle the task for her. Number 5. Justice League Dark. This subset of the League is dedicated to dealing with supernatural or mystic threats to the Earth and has many of DC's most powerful magic wielders as members. Wonder Woman was a member of both teams, so she won't be considered in this entry. A member like Deadman, who can possess people, would be a good way to take out the Flash. The demon Etrigan almost killed the modern Batman in Kevin Smith's Widening Gyre, so Silver Age Bats is totally screwed. He's also yellow, so he could cause a lot of problems for Green Lantern. Superman's magic weakness would make him particularly vulnerable to all of the members of this team, but mostly Zatanna. And don't tell me you wouldn't love to see Silver Age Aquaman go up against the chain-smoking magic wielder John Constantine, who could just use magic to dehydrate him. All that leaves is Martian Manhunter, while the Dark Justice League still has a surplus of fighters like Dr. Fate, Swamp Thing, and Enchantress, just to name a few. Number 4. The Legion of Superheroes. The Legion of Superheroes are a massive team of superpowered people from various worlds in the 30th century. They have a history of traveling through time to team up with a young Clark Kent and preventing disasters before they happen. Unfortunately for the League, this means that their most powerful member is benched for this round. A Legion member like Element Lad, who can transmute common elements, like water, into other things, could take out this version of Aquaman pretty fast, while the Chemical Kid's ability to affect the chemical reactions in the body would cause Batman to go into toxic shock. Dragonwing can breathe fire, which would make Martian Manhunter have some issues. Despite Superman being off the board for both teams, the Daxamite Mon-El has a very similar power set to the Man of Steel and would be a real challenge for Wonder Woman, especially if he teamed up with another member of the team, Superman's son John. There's no one hero who could break the Flash's stride, but considering there are like 24 Legion of Superhero members I haven't mentioned, the Legion would take this fight over the original Justice League through sheer numbers. Number 3. The Bat Family. So obviously Batman is off the table for this pair-up of the League versus the various sidekicks that Batman has trained over the years. While I don't think that the modern Bat Family could take out the original League in open combat, their experience over the years in guerrilla tactics and their access to a Bat computer full of plans designed to take out way more powerful versions of the League's heroes would give them a definite edge. But even if we take away those plans as they were developed by Batman, the Bat Family has the know-how to formulate effective contingency plans of their own. In the recent Robin and Batman miniseries, we learned that coming up with plans to take out superpowered beings was one of the first lessons Dick Grayson was taught when he was introduced to the Justice League and the Teen Titans. Characters like Tim Drake and Damian Wayne have shown a keen tactical mind, with Damian repeatedly bragging about how he would plan to take out the superheroes of the League. These Robins, teamed with other members like the various Batgirls, Batwing, Signal, and Huntress, would be more than smart enough to come up with their own plans to take out the Silver Age heroes of the League. We know they have access to Kryptonite, although Damian claims to have a plan to defeat Superman in the comics that is magic-based. Dick Grayson beat up Green Lantern as a child in All-Star Batman and Robin after painting an entire room and himself yellow, so Nightwing would have no issues as an adult going up against the Silver Age version of the character. I like the mental image of Silver Age Aquaman having to try and go 10 rounds with the Red Hood, and although Flash, Martian Manhunter, and Wonder Woman would be difficult to deal with, the Bat Family could take them out, and I know how cliched this sounds, if they had enough prep time. Number 2. The Green Lantern Corps. This intergalactic group of space cops use the power of will to fuel their Green Lantern rings, which allow them to create powerful constructs limited only by the user's imagination. Well, the logic I've used so far on this list on how other heroes could defeat Silver Age Green Lantern may initially sound like something the Silver Age League could use to their advantage, this weakness no longer affects the modern Green Lantern Corps. It was revealed that the weakness yellow was due to the being Parallax being trapped in the Green Lantern's central power battery on the planet Oa and causing an impurity. This impurity has since been removed, meaning that the League painting themselves yellow wouldn't help them. Both the Corps and the League obviously lose Hal Jordan due to him being on both teams, but that still leaves dozens of Green Lanterns for the 6 remaining Leaguers to try and deal with. While having the Flash, Wonder Woman, and Superman would make the League last longer than you might think, the sheer size and power of the Green Lantern Corps, with powerful members of later iterations of the League such as John Stewart and Guy Gardner, would make the Justice League outmatched. But maybe we'd get to see Batman take out Guy Gardner with a single punch again before it happened. Number 1. The Superman Family. The Superman family might just be one of the most OP superhero teams in the DC universe, with many of its members having the same powers as the Man of Steel. In this hypothetical matchup, the Silver Age Justice League simply wouldn't stand a chance. Not only do they lose their most powerful team member due to the technicality, but they have to go up against heroes like Supergirl, Superboy, and the John Kent Superman. I think Kara Zor-El is the most interesting matchup against this version of Wonder Woman, and that Power Girl could take out Green Lantern with John Kent wiping the floor with Silver Age Aquaman. Martian Manhunter would be dangerous with his mind control, but a bolt of heat vision from Superboy would probably be sufficient. The Flash is tricky but by no means impossible to defeat in his Silver Age iteration, and honestly the biggest threat to the Super family would be Batman with his kryptonite. But Lana Lang's Superwoman is not affected by this, so she should be okay. Anyone left over from the fight would be in no condition to keep going for long, which is when the last line of defense would kick in. A super dog, cat, and monkey, all with the powers of the Man of Steel. Honestly, the Superman family is so powerful that even the modern version of the Justice League would have trouble triumphing over them if it ever came to blows between the two groups.
Alright, at number 10 we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with fire powers, Frostbite, an ice power guy, Elastaman, a stretchy man, Element Man, much like Metamorpho, Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil, and always had been. Luckily the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
Number 9. Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and the Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons, they're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
At number 8 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. You know, like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek. What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 7. Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away and hiding, he's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5, Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke, Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
At number 4 we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, destroy other universes entirely, which of course, he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3, the Joker League. In Emperor Joker number 1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the 5th dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro number 1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game, where you can derive general story points from the game itself. Most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1. The Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth-3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who are both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns, at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America. Number 10 is Bouncing Boy. YouTube commenter Dracone was the inspiration for this one. He reminded us that during a time when the Legion of Superheroes was without a leader and was holding a voting poll to decide who would lead, Bouncing Boy managed to take over as a temporary leader before the votes were cast, and did such a good job as an interim leader, he was actually voted in as the official leader despite never actually being listed on the official ballots. And honestly, Chuck Tane's ability may seem kind of silly, but the power to inflate himself and bounce around like a giant ball gives him a combination of invulnerability and velocity that actually makes him a surprisingly useful combatant. And speaking of combat, he actually has a high level of tactical skill and knowledge. Now his name is silly, and the other members wanted to give him a cooler name, but for Chuck, it's all about that bounce, baby. Number 9, Timberwolf. He was born on the planet Zune, where his father Marlondo experimented on him. This gave him enhanced werewolf-like abilities, including strength levels several times that of a normal human, enhanced reflexes and agility, making him a fearsome physical opponent in battle, with his enhanced reflexes additionally granting the ability to run much faster than a normal human being. Timberwolf also has sharpened claws on each hand. He's very much like other werewolf-like comic book characters, but as part of the Legion, he is in space and has all the benefits that come with Legion membership. But he is also prone to a little bit of bestial savagery. Just a little bit. Number 8, Triplicate Girl. Lawarnu Durgo is a Kargite from the planet Karg, which is a planet that has 3 suns. For some reason, these 3 suns allowed its Kargite inhabitants the ability to split themselves into 3 identical bodies, each with their own thoughts and personalities, and whose memories are absorbed into the original Kargite when absorbed back together. Lawarnu left her home to try out for the Legion on Earth, and she demonstrated her power to the Legion's 3 founders at the same time, simultaneously, which I'm sure was very impressive. Unfortunately, after the death of one of her duplicates at the hand of Computo, she could only split into 2 bodies, but eventually she got upgrades. Now, she has the power to split herself into an apparently endless number of identical bodies, no matter where she is. It is not yet known if there is any upper limit to her duplication ability, so she could literally just be duplicating all the time, which is weird. Number 7, Gold Lantern. In the current time, as in right now, as in modern time, the Green Lantern Corps is just one of many corps that each stand for a different color on the emotional spectrum. But the Legion of Superheroes is from the 31st century, and as such there is a bit of a difference to the course of old. Kala Lor was a blind Filipino schoolteacher in the 31st century when the elders of Oa, the future guardians of the universe, offered him a gold lantern ring, combining the different colors of the spectrum, but not like the White Lantern. The elders offered Kala as their ambassador in the Legion of Superheroes, but surprise, Brainiac 5 revealed that the elders of Oa are not actually the guardians of the universe, and there is some sinister thing going on with them, so that's not confusing at all. Similar to the members of the other colored lantern corps, Gold Lantern has the power to create physical constructs with his ring. These constructs are powered by sheer force of will and limited only by Kala's imagination. The ring's power creates a sort of force field around him, protecting him from all but the strongest attacks. Kala's ring also allows him to fly at incredible speeds, which makes his Legion flight ring more of like a status symbol than anything else. Number 6, Phantom
Phantom Girl. Tinya, or Tanya Wazo, possesses the ability to shift partially to the extra-dimensional Phantom Zone, allowing her to phase through solid matter and become intangible, meaning she cannot be harmed by conventional means of attack. This is a power that's common to all natives of Big Zittle, but it also enables her to access the Phantom Zone and use it to travel to Earth, which is not an ability shared by the rest of her race. Another thing that makes her unique to her race is the ease with which she can make only part of her body intangible. Additionally, in newer continuity, she can use the halo over her head as a portal and transport something or someone, including herself, from one location to another. She is much cooler than I am making her sound. I promise you, just check her out. Number 5, Lightning Lass. Including Lightning Lass on this list feels a little bit like cheating since, well, we had Lightning Lad on the last list and she is just his twin who received powers at the exact same time and in the same way. Born on Winath, she gained electric powers through exposure to a lightning beast, but I suppose, unlike her brother, she did also use the alias Light Lass when she gained the power to alter the pull of gravity. At that time, according to BRAINIAC 5, Light Lass and STARBOY were two of the most powerful sentient beings in the universe because of their ability to manipulate gravity, the dominant force in the universe for sharpening large-scale structure of stars and galaxies. But that was on Prime Earth, so it's not always the case. But she does have the powers of Lightning Lad on a lower level, which gains her a good spot on this list. Number 4, Sunboy. The Earthling Dirk Morgana, who becomes Sunboy, was thrown into an atomic reactor for interrupting an experiment, causing an explosion. Yes, I know it's kind of harsh, but luckily this did not kill Dirk. Instead, it revealed that he is a metahuman with a 1 in a million genetic structure that allowed the radiation to be absorbed into his body and gave him the power to generate heat and light. Sunboy can internally generate an almost limitless supply of solar energy, from the smallest candle flicker to around the energy of the sun. So yeah, that's a lot of freaking power. Thankfully, he is also completely immune to heat and solar radiation, so he can survive his own powers, which is always a plus. Interestingly though, his power to radiate light and heat can be reflected back on him by mirrors, jewels, and even creatures that possess reflective physical characteristics, which is a sucky weakness, but hey, we've all got them, you know. Number 3, WILDFIRE. One day while studying at the University of Metropolis's Research Center, Drake Burroughs was caught in a laboratory explosion that completely destroyed his body. For reasons unknown, his consciousness survived, and the atoms of his body reconstituted themselves as pure antimatter. A scientist named Professor Voltan created a specifically designed suit to contain Drake's energy form. This suit enabled Drake the ability to channel a wide variety of new energy-based powers through that suit. These abilities include space travel, energy/anti-energy blasts, super strength and superhuman speed, the ability to change his size and density, and manipulate chemical reactions, with his most unique ability being the ability to create a massive anti-energy blast. It's also hinted that he is basically immortal, as he is a constantly recharging source of energy with no end in sight. He is among the Legion's top 4 most powerful heroes. Not on this list, I mean in the world. Number 2, Starboy. Thom Kalor, or Tom Kalor if you prefer, was born on an observatory satellite orbiting the planet Xanthu. He originally gained Kryptonian-level powers like those of Superman when he was caught in the tail of a comet, but in time those faded away, leaving only the superhuman ability to temporarily increase or decrease the mass of an object, or sometimes person, up to the mass of a star. So he basically makes things heavy, but so heavy in fact that he can take a simple object and turn it into a black hole. It is worth noting that the black hole is apparently dependent upon his powers to remain active, but it's a freaking black hole that this guy can just create. Starboy can seem to use these black holes as wormholes to alternate realities of the multiverse, so that's a pretty useful ability, but black holes are terrifying, and personally I'd rather just take the multiversal taxi. That's just me though. Starboy eventually becomes adrift in time and space, eventually becoming Starman in Kingdom Come, and then moving back to the early 21st century and joining the Justice Society of America, which all had a bit of a deteriorating effect on his sanity, so pros and cons. And in at number 1 is Element Element Lad. Jan Ara, aka Element Lad, is the last survivor of the planet Trom. The rest of his race was wiped out by Roxas the space pirate and his crew when they refused to transmute common elements into rare metals and jewels. Jan had only survived this genocide because he had been in space at the time. He served with the Legion for many years, serving terms as leader and deputy leader. Like all the other Tromites, which no longer exist, Jan has the ability to transmute substances on the atomic level, which is an incredibly strong ability in comics if you did not know. As an example of what he could potentially do, the Element Lad of Earth 247 had also learned how to change his own chemical makeup, which allowed him to live over billions of years, and over time he learned to use his abilities to actually create or destroy life and make himself near omnipotent. He is a crazy powerful character. Number 10. Sensor Girl. Projectra Windsor is a princess on the very medieval planet Orondo, but the title of Princess Projectra just ain't cool enough for her, so instead she goes by the much cooler name of Sensor Girl, which is the name she's had since joining up with the Legion in 1966. But why is she one of the most powerful members of the Legion? Well, Sensor Girl's powers allow her to cast illusions, but the illusions are so gosh darn realistic that the one who is being illusioned, for lack of a better term, cannot tell the difference. With time, this has basically become a form of controlling senses, or even shutting off someone's senses altogether. It may not seem like an incredibly powerful offensive ability, but when Nemesis Kid of the Legion of Supervillains took the life of Karate Kid, Sensor Girl's husband, she was able to use her powers and skill to defeat Nemesis Kid. She's also incredibly fast and can take on most characters in hand-to-hand combat thanks to her training with Karate Kid. She's even gone on to lead the team back before it was rebooted post-Zero Hour. Number 9. Karate Kid. While Val Armour, Karate Kid, does not have any powers of his own, he makes up for that fact by being the absolute best martial artist in the known universe. And I ain't even kidding. He has learned a form of super karate that has allowed him to stand one-on-one against Superboy during his audition to be part of the Legion. When Val was still young and an orphan, Japan's greatest warrior took him in. Sensei Toshiaki taught Val multiple different martial arts. Under this training, Val was able to become the youngest warrior to ever earn the title of samurai. Learning all he could from Earth, Val set off into space to find new martial arts to learn and master. With this mastery over so many different forms of martial arts, Karate Kid is absolutely one of the most powerful Legion of Superheroes members, even without powers of his own. Before we carry on, there are tons of members of the Legion of Superheroes with all kinds of powers. So my question for you today is, who in your opinion is the most underrated member of the Legion, and do you think they will make this list? Answer in the comments and we'll carry on. Number 8. Chameleon Boy. Chameleon Boy, the son of RJ Brand, the founder of the Legion of Superheroes, is a shapeshifter just like all those of Durlan descent. Durlans can shapeshift at any time for any length of time with basically no limitation on the size or shape thanks to the fact that they have near total control over their molecular biology. It basically means that they have no specific chosen form except for what they choose for themselves, which by the 30th century was an orange humanoid with large eyes and 2 antennae on their heads. This makes Chameleon Boy, or Reap Daggle, which is the best name ever, able to do a lot. He can perform biofission to create multiples of himself and biofusion with others of his race, and can even use this to turn into an actual functioning spaceship, meaning that this species can create electricity, thrust, and oxygenated air supply, which by default means they can manipulate the elements. Members of this race can even reconstitute themselves from even a liquid form. They also automatically absorb complete details of any person, creature, or thing's structure down to pore differences so that they can duplicate it perfectly whenever they wish. Chameleon Boy is nuts. Number 7. Ultra Boy. This one is interesting, as you'd be totally forgiven for actually laughing at this character, but then you'd have to say sorry as you just insulted an incredibly powerful dude. Ultra Boy, or Joe Na, possesses many of the same powers as Superboy, including superhuman speed, strength, flight, stamina, breath, vision, and invulnerability, which he gained from being swallowed by an energy beast, which is essentially a giant space whale, hence the biblical Jonah name. The only issue with Joe Na, and
it's a big one, is that he can only use one power at a time. This means that if he wants to fly through space at super speed, he must wear a spacesuit to survive in the cold vacuum. Or, when using his power for super strength, he is not invulnerable and then therefore can get tired, feel muscular pain, or even pull a muscle. Joe Na can switch these abilities almost instantly, but needs to make the conscious choice to do so, which honestly sounds kind of exhausting to me. Despite his limitation, he often works with Mon-El and Superboy as the Legion's big three powerhouses, and even led the team at one point. Number 6. Brainiac 5. Brainiac? On a hero team? Yes, I know, but there are or were numerous versions of the character Brainiac in DC continuity. This one, from the 30th century, known as Brainiac 5, is actually a descendant of Brainiac 2, cloned from the original and one of the biggest threats Superman has ever faced. Brainiac 5, or Quirrell Dox from the planet Kolu, is hyper aware of his lineage, and as such, he has made many efforts to set himself apart, making him one of the funniest and most caring members of the team, while also being one of the most powerful. Other than being a capable shapeshifter, his power lies mostly in his intellect. Everything that makes him powerful comes from his mind thanks to having 12th level intelligence. He has a level of genius which has no comparison to anything on Earth, which is considered to be a 6th level intellect in its entirety. So essentially, Brainiac is twice as intelligent as the population of Earth, which, I mean, have you been outside and talked to another human recently? We aren't that impressive. Number 5. Lightning Lad. Born on the planet Winath, Gardy Rands, known as Lightning Lad and sometimes Livewire, was forced to land on the planet Korbal with his 2 siblings. Figuring the only way to restore power to their ship was to use the electrical energy of the native electrical beasts, the 3 attempted to siphon those beasts' power. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately if you want to look at it that way, the act backfired and left the 3 with superpowers. Gardy and his sister became heroes while their older brother became a lightning-themed villain. While Lightning Lad is very centered around the whole lightning thing, his power is actually to manipulate energy, which he usually manifests in the form of blue electricity and lightning bolts. He can use these to shock and disable enemies. So it's not just shocking people though, and powering things. He can manipulate energy and generate it, and also possesses some limited weather controlling powers. And he can move at superhuman speed thanks to his ability to channel electricity through his body, which supercharges it. He ain't no chump. Number 4. Cosmic Boy. Cosmic Boy, whose real name is Rock Kryn, was one of the founding members of the Legion, and also the group's original leader. As such, you'd expect him to be pretty powerful. And he is. Cosmic Boy possesses the power of metal manipulation, similar to Marvel's Magneto, but actually a bit more powerful. Cosmic Boy can repel, attract, and wholly manipulate objects containing any form of metal. He has shown an ability to pull large satellites down from orbit, and he can magnetize objects to make them stick to other similar objects. He can also fly, create force fields, project concussive blasts, and absorb energy using this ability. Coming from his home planet of Brawl, Rock is an incredible natural leader, and it's probably his greatest strength, even above the magnetism powers. After arriving on Earth, he, Garth Rands, and Irma Ardeen successfully stopped the de-lifing of the well-known billionaire R.J. Brand, who brought the 3 together to start the Legion. Number 3. Mon-El. Mon-El, Largand, or Valor, is from the planet Daxam, which is actually one of the planets that orbited the same star as Krypton did. Originally, Daxam was settled by Kryptonian colonists, but over an incredibly long time, these Kryptonians evolved separately and gained some uniqueness, although honestly not a lot. Mon-El and any member of his species who finds themselves in the light of a yellow sun has superhuman abilities somewhat similar to those of a Kryptonian. So yes, just like Superman, he has superhuman strength, invulnerability, super speed, flight, heat vision, and freeze breath, and can use extrasensory powers like X-ray vision. But unlike Superman, he is only weak to lead, not kryptonite, and violently, irreversibly weak to it. Luckily for him though, the Legion has an anti-lead serum thingy, so he is basically Superman without any main weaknesses, unless he doesn't take the serum. Number 2. Superboy. Superboy was always closely associated with the Legion of Superheroes, being one of the inspirations for the team, but he wasn't from the 30th century like the Legion is. For that reason, most of the early stories featuring the group had Superboy either travel to the 30th century or Legion members dropping in on the 20th century. In terms of power, he's easily one of the most powerful of the group because, well, as most of you might know, the original Superboy was basically just a teenage Superman, but later versions of Superboy are more like the genetic clone of both Lex Luthor and Superman. So due to that, he has the majority of Superman's power when he was a teenager, mixed with the intelligence of Luthor, which is one hell of a dangerous combo. And then there is Jonathan Kent, who is literally just Superman's son. So any which one you want to choose, Superboy is a powerhouse. And in at number 1 is Saturn Girl. Saturn Girl, otherwise known as Imra Ardeen, comes from the moon of Saturn, Titan. Like all of those great people who come from Titan, in DC Comics specifically, Saturn Girl is inherently gifted with telepathy, but unlike other Titanites, Saturn Girl is extremely proficient with it, like really proficient. So much so that among the various DC characters that possess telepathy, Saturn Girl is arguably the strongest of them all. There is almost no defense to Saturn Girl's telepathic attacks, which makes her arguably the most powerful member of the team. While other characters have more physical abilities or control over forms of matter, it doesn't mean much when Saturn Girl can defeat you with a look, like she did to both Ultra Boy and Mon-El once. She rendered both men unconscious with a simple look. She has been on every version of the team, and there's an excellent reason for that. Other than being one of the 3 founding members, she is just too powerful to exclude.